Have you ever wondered why older men cheat? At an age when looks, intimacy, and passion don't excite them like they used to, what drives them to seek someone else? Even if their wives are beautiful, accomplished, and devoted, why do some still go outside the marriage? It's not about excusing or justifying them. Sometimes the stress and challenges of life itself can push them to look for someone else. Hi, I'm Vernon, and in this video, we're diving into 5 uncomfortable reasons why some married older men still look outside their marriages for fulfillment. These aren't excuses, they're insights into human behavior that can help you understand patterns, protect your heart, and see the truth behind what drives even the most seemingly devoted men. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give this video a like so you never miss insights that can help you navigate relationships with clarity. Now, let's break down each of these reasons one by one, starting with the harsh truth that most people don't want to admit.
Truth 1. The erosion of emotional intimacy over time. One of the harshest realities in long-term marriages is that emotional intimacy can slowly erode without anyone realizing it. Couples may still live under the same roof, share meals, even laugh together, but the deep sense of being truly seen and understood can fade. For some men, this lack of emotional connection creates a silent craving. They're not necessarily seeking to replace their partner. They're seeking a sense of being fully appreciated, fully acknowledged, fully felt. The mind may be satisfied with routine and comfort, but the heart starts to feel empty. It often begins subtly: fewer late-night talks, less vulnerability, fewer conversations about dreams, fears, or frustrations. Over time, this gap grows. A man may find himself sharing thoughts, feelings, or even compliments with someone outside the marriage simply because the depth of emotional intimacy has diminished at home. The ancient Persian poet Hafez wrote, "I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being." But what happens when the person closest to you stops seeing that light, stops asking about your inner world, stops being curious about who you're becoming? This emotional erosion often happens so gradually that neither partner notices. Conversations become functional rather than connective. Physical presence replaces emotional presence. The marriage continues to operate efficiently, but the souls within it begin to starve. The tragedy is that this erosion is often mutual. Wives feel just as emotionally disconnected, but they may express this need differently or seek fulfillment through different channels. The husband who seems distant may actually be desperately lonely for emotional connection within his marriage. This is why some married men find themselves drawn to emotional affairs that start innocently. A colleague who asks thoughtful questions, a friend who remembers details about his hopes and concerns, someone who makes him feel seen and understood in ways his marriage no longer provides. The solution requires both partners to recognize that emotional intimacy requires intentional cultivation throughout the life of a marriage. Regular check-ins about inner experiences, curious questions about each other's evolving thoughts and feelings, and the vulnerability to share beyond practical concerns. But emotional disconnection, while painful, is often compounded by something even more destabilizing: the identity shifts that come with major life transitions.
Truth 2. The identity crisis after major life transitions. There's something profound and unsettling that happens to many men during major life transitions. Retirement, career changes, children leaving home, health scares. Suddenly, the identities they've built their lives around begin to shift or disappear entirely, leaving them questioning who they are and what their purpose is moving forward. The ancient Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote about the danger of defining ourselves through external roles. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does. But for many men, their sense of worth has been so deeply tied to their professional roles, their provider status, their position in hierarchies, that losing these creates what psychologists call identity foreclosure. This crisis is particularly acute for men because traditional masculine identity has been built around doing rather than being, achieving rather than simply existing, providing value through performance rather than inherent worth. Research from developmental psychology shows that men often experience more severe identity disruption during major life transitions compared to women, partly because they've been socialized to derive self-worth from external achievement rather than internal relationships and personal growth. When a man's primary identity dissolves, whether through retirement, job loss, health issues, or children becoming independent, he may unconsciously seek situations that restore his sense of being valuable, important, or desired. Affairs aren't about the other person. They're about recapturing a sense of self that feels lost within the marriage. The woman who finds him fascinating, who asks about his experiences, who seems impressed by his knowledge or attracted to his presence. She represents not just romantic interest, but identity validation. She makes him feel like the man he used to be or still wants to be. This vulnerability is compounded when the marriage itself hasn't evolved to help both partners navigate these identity transitions together. When couples don't talk about the psychological challenges of aging, retirement, or changing roles, each partner may struggle alone with questions that could be explored together. Prevention involves recognizing that major life transitions require emotional support and identity reconstruction. Marriages need to create space for both partners to explore who they're becoming, not just who they've been. Have you or someone you know experienced an identity shift during a major life change? How did it affect your relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Understanding this identity shift sets the stage for our next truth: how the erosion of emotional intimacy over time quietly pushes some men to seek validation elsewhere. Truth 3. The silent hunger for genuine appreciation. Perhaps one of the most overlooked yet powerful emotional needs in long-term marriage is the hunger for genuine appreciation. Not just for what a man does, but for who he is.
After decades of being valued primarily as a provider, protector, or problem solver, many married men develop a deep longing to be appreciated simply for their inherent worth. The ancient Greek concept of agape refers to unconditional love, appreciation for someone's being, not just their doing. Many marriages gradually shift from agape to what I call transactional appreciation, gratitude for services rendered rather than celebration of the person providing them. This shift happens slowly and often invisibly. In early relationships, partners appreciate each other's jokes, insights, perspectives, quirks. Over time, appreciation becomes focused on practical contributions, household help, income, childcare, maintenance tasks. The person becomes invisible. Only their functions remain visible. Dr. John Gottman's research identifies appreciation and admiration as one of the foundational elements of lasting marriages. But his studies reveal that many couples lose the ability to see and verbalize what they appreciate about each other as individuals, focusing instead on what they appreciate about their partner's contributions to shared goals. Men, who are often socialized to derive worth from usefulness, can become particularly vulnerable when their inherent value seems unrecognized. The colleague who laughs at his jokes, the friend who finds his stories interesting, the acquaintance who seems genuinely glad to see him. These interactions can feel profoundly nourishing compared to home interactions focused on tasks and responsibilities. Recognizing this silent hunger for genuine appreciation helps us understand why some men begin seeking validation outside the marriage. But it also sets the stage for our next truth: how the erosion of emotional intimacy over time quietly pushes them toward something more.
Truth 4. The fear of mortality and lost opportunities. This isn't the stereotypical midlife crisis with sports cars and young girlfriends, but something more complex. The fear that life is passing by without having fully lived. I remember my cousin Thomas, who shocked himself by developing feelings for a woman in his hiking group. "I've been married to Linda for 38 years, he told me. "We have a good life, grown children, financial security. But lately, I wake up thinking about all the experiences I'll never have, all the versions of myself I'll never get to explore. This other woman, when I'm with her, I feel like there are still possibilities, like life isn't just about managing what I've already built." What Thomas was experiencing wasn't simply attraction to another woman, but what psychologists call mortality salience anxiety, the psychological distress that comes from confronting the finite nature of existence and feeling that important experiences or aspects of self have been unexplored. This fear manifests differently for different men. Some become obsessed with physical fitness, trying to stop time through health and vigor. Others pursue new hobbies or interests with almost desperate intensity. And some become vulnerable to relationships that promise to restore a sense of possibility, adventure, or aspects of themselves that feel dormant or foreclosed within their marriage. She appeals not because she's better than his wife, but because she embodies adventure, possibility, and aspects of himself that feel dormant or foreclosed within his marriage. This dynamic is particularly dangerous because it's often unconscious. The married man doesn't think, "I want to explore undeveloped aspects of myself." He just finds himself drawn to situations or people that make him feel more alive, more like versions of himself that marriage doesn't seem to allow. Prevention requires marriages that continue to provide opportunities for growth, adventure, and self-discovery throughout life. Couples who explore new experiences together, who encourage each other's evolution, who see marriage as a platform for continued becoming rather than a settled state of being. Have you ever noticed how the fear of missed opportunities shapes someone's choices? Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Like the video and subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss the next truth we uncover. Even when fear of missed opportunities is acknowledged, another subtle but powerful force can quietly drive men towards seeking something more.
Truth 5. The escape from overwhelming responsibility. Perhaps the most heartbreaking truth I've discovered about some married men who look elsewhere is that they're not necessarily seeking more, they're seeking less. Less responsibility, less pressure, less of the overwhelming weight that comes with being the person everyone depends on for everything. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught about the burden of responsibility and the human need for freedom within structure. But what happens when structure becomes so overwhelming that freedom disappears entirely? When a man's entire identity becomes defined by what others need from him, rather than what brings him joy or peace. This dynamic is particularly common among men who have been highly successful in traditional provider roles. They've built lives where their worth is entirely tied to their usefulness to others, their ability to solve problems, provide security, make decisions, handle crises. But the psychological cost of constant responsibility can be enormous. The other woman doesn't need him to fix her problems, support her financially, make decisions that affect her future, or carry responsibility for her well-being. The relationship exists in a bubble where he can simply be present without consequences. This is why some of the most devoted family men can simultaneously pursue relationships that seem to threaten everything they've built. The affair isn't about replacing his family. It's about temporarily escaping the pressure of being responsible for his family's well-being. So older women must recognizing when marriage and family life have become so heavy with responsibility that joy, spontaneity, and lightness have disappeared. It means creating spaces within committed relationships where both partners can exist without weight, where interaction can be playful rather than always purposeful. It also means redistributing emotional and practical responsibilities more equitably, so no one person carries the overwhelming burden of being everyone else's solution to everything. And it requires understanding that the need for psychological relief from responsibility is human and valid. The question is whether marriages can provide this relief or whether it gets sought elsewhere. As we reach the end of this difficult but necessary conversation, I want to emphasize something crucial.
Understanding these hidden truths about married men isn't about excusing infidelity or accepting betrayal as inevitable. It's about recognizing the human vulnerabilities that can compromise even the most committed relationships, so we can address them before they become destructive. The 5 truths we've explored: the erosion of emotional intimacy, identity crisis during transitions, hunger for genuine appreciation, fear of mortality and lost opportunities, and escape from overwhelming responsibility, reveal something profound about human nature. We are complex beings with deep emotional and psychological needs that don't disappear simply because we've made marriage vows. If you recognized your own marriage in any of these patterns, if you felt uncomfortable recognition rather than righteous judgment, then you understand something important. These vulnerabilities exist in most long-term relationships. The difference between couples who thrive and couples who struggle isn't the absence of these challenges, but how consciously they address them. Whether you're married or in a committed relationship is to have honest conversations about these hidden truths. Ask your partner about their emotional needs, their identity struggles, their need for appreciation, their fears about time passing, their feelings about responsibility. Create space for vulnerability without judgment. Most importantly, recognize that preventing infidelity isn't about controlling your partner's behavior. It's about creating relationships so emotionally and psychologically fulfilling that the temptation to look elsewhere simply doesn't arise. If this conversation has opened your eyes to aspects of marriage you hadn't considered, please like this video, share it with others who might benefit, and comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss future insights on marriage, relationships, and emotional intelligence. Until next time, keep growing in understanding, keep choosing compassion over judgment, and keep believing that with wisdom and effort, marriages can become sanctuaries that fulfill rather than starve the souls within them. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time.